Okay, if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, but let's get right to it. The Rise of Skywalker. I have seen it, and I was going to do a spoiler-free episode, but it's so hard because there's so much buildup here for me to not talk spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, I suggest we do not go any further. But if you have seen it, let's discuss in the comment section below. Here we go. The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9. Spoilers. 3, 2, 1. Han Solo is back. Harrison Ford. Look, this was the biggest bombshell for me when I was watching the movie, okay? Harrison Ford is back. We'll get into that scene in just a minute. But let's talk about basically the overall film. J.J. Abrams basically took a big old shit on top of Rian Johnson's movie, okay? And I think the orders came down from Disney, and they just were basically like, JJ, you have to course correct. You have to save this thing. I've been saying it for a long time. The Last Jedi did $700 million less than The Force Awakens. They sold 3 million Blu-rays compared to The Force Awakens' 6 million Blu-rays. No matter how much of a fan, let's, forget the past. And all that. Money talks and bullshit walks to the mouse house. That was a ton of money to leave on the table, and they course corrected. Basically, JJ undid everything that he could do besides bringing back Luke Skywalker. He retconned everything. Okay? And he picked up, basically the movie feels like a direct sequel to The Force Awakens. And it is also a soft reboot of Return of the Jedi, basically ignoring most of the events that took place in The Last Jedi. Carrie Fisher, wow. They were able to pull off one of the biggest mystery boxes I've ever seen in the history of cinema. They took about 8 minutes worth of deleted scenes and were not just making a cameo of like Carrie Fisher in this thing as Princess Leia. She's the story of this film in many respects. And they intertwined her in such a way that was mind-blowing. Down to when Luke Skywalker was narrating to Rey, and the flashback happened on Endor when you saw Luke as a Jedi Knight right after Return of the Jedi training Leia. Unbelievable scene, seeing the de-aged Luke Skywalker, seeing the digital de-aged Princess Leia in the scene when they were fighting in the woods. Unbelievable. And it explains a lot about Rey's lightsaber. What they did with Carrie Fisher was amazing. There may have been one or two scenes that felt a little twitchy, but at the same time, it seemed almost flawless, like she was actually there. I mean, it actually seemed like the way the actors interacted, the way the story unfolded, she was part of this as if that's the way it was written. The movie felt like Raiders of the Lost Ark. And what I mean by that is a lot of people online were given a lot of crap about, it's like a video game where they got to go here and get a power up and then go here and unlock this. And then they get to the next level and blah, 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 blah. It's like a big video game. No, it had multiple MacGuffins, and it was like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You had to go get the headpiece for the Staff of Ra to go to the map room. The map room gave you the location of the Well of Souls. The Well of Souls gave you the Ark of the Covenant. You had to open the Ark of the Covenant to find out if the pieces were inside. Same principle here. And they had to go get these Jedi wayfinders. All of this leads to Emperor Palpatine, where they're basically skipping across the galaxy trying to find this radio broadcast that came from the hidden regions, Exegol, which wasn't on any map and all this other kind of stuff, where Emperor Palpatine has been hiding in a Sith temple, building a new fleet of Star Destroyers. It felt like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay. And if you don't get that reference, then I hope I opened up a little bit of a thing there for you. Couple of really cool cameos. Of course, Lando Calrissian was absolutely fantastic to see him back. Billy D. Williams. It started to really feel like a Star Wars movie. He has such a warmth and presence when he comes on screen that when he showed up, you had this sigh of, oh, Lando's here. And everything he did was perfect in the film. In the final battle sequence on the Millennium Falcon, in one of the gun turrets was Dennis Lawson, who is Ewan McGregor's uncle, who played Wedge Antilles in the first original trilogy, Star Wars. He had this one little quick line where he was like, "Great job, Lando!" And he's in the gunner seat shooting. And I was like, "Oh, that's great." I had heard he was in it, and there was a little bit more to it. But anyway, make a long story short, that was a great cameo that was in the film. Let's see. I took so many notes after I finished. There were a ton of voice cameos, especially in the end. A lot of the Jedi. I swear I heard, and I think even in the credits there was Frank Oz did the Yoda voice. There was a scene where all the Jedis were calling to Rey, and you just heard them one after another, rise, 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 rise up. And it gave her like this thing. For everybody that were fans and hoping there was going to be this relationship between Kylo Ren and Rey, the Reylo thing, that kind of played out. And there was a really beautiful, it wasn't cheesy. There was a beautiful kiss moment right before, spoilers, Ben Solo dies because he turned himself back to the good side of the light. There were memorable moments where Adam Driver, when he turned good, it was all because this was tied into The Mandalorian. In the last episode of The Mandalorian, which was perfectly timed to be released on the Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday before the movie came out, Baby Yoda or Clone Yoda put his hand on Carl Weathers and healed his wounds, and you saw the wound close up. Well, 2 scenes in Rise of Skywalker, that was the first time in Mandalorian we'd ever seen that gift being used. And of course, it is used twice in The Rise of Skywalker. Once in the catacombs when Rey comes across this snake-like underground creature with teeth that appears to be threatening and going to kill them, but he's wounded, and Rey walks up and she puts her hand on him, and he and heals him, and he understands, okay, they're not here to hurt me, this creature. And once again, Rey, after fighting Kylo Ren, runs him through with a lightsaber, and he drops, and she realizes she's turning to the dark side because she was so vengeful when she attacked him, that she put her hands on him and healed him up using the living force within her to heal his wounds. And that is what essentially helped him turn back to the good side, was he realized that Rey, her intentions were pure. And at that particular moment, in that lightsaber battle, which was on one of the planets in the Endor system where the wreckage of the Death Star was, Rey does a little flip after she saves Ben Solo after running him through, gets on his TIE fighter and flies off the planet, leaving him standing there, all healed up. And all of a sudden, Princess Leia uses the last of her energy and breath to expose Kylo Ren, almost like if you remember the movie The Man of Steel, where Henry Cavill's father was Kevin Costner, and he died in the beginning of the movie in the tornado thing. And then later on, when he was trying to find himself, he ran into Kevin Costner's character playing Pa Kent, cutting wood on top of a mountain. And he had that one last like message from the grave to him for letting him realize what he needed to do with his life. Same thing here. Almost just like the suspension bridge. There's a piece of Death Star wreckage that looked like the suspension bridge. This is all metaphorical. And out comes Harrison Ford from the mist. And he is there as Han Solo, as we've last saw him in The Force Awakens, and he walks up to Kylo Ren, and they start having this conversation about, can I do this? Am I ready? And then there's the beautiful line that was in The Force Awakens, and the same thing, if we remember, Harrison Ford, when he died, he touched Kylo Ren's face like this, and then fell back and died after being run through. He touches Ben Solo's face, and Ben says the line that he said before, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the courage to do it. And that's when Han Solo, Harrison Ford, touches his face and says, no, you know exactly what you need to do, which is to turn back to the good side. He tosses the Kylo Ren lightsaber, and he's off to try to catch up with Rey to help her defeat Palpatine. And he turns back to the good side. Now, does this completely dissolve him of all the horrible things he did in the galaxy and all the people he killed? No, it doesn't. But at the same time, she needs him to help fight him. And of course, Rey, we all know now she is Palpatine's granddaughter, and Palpatine had a son and a daughter-in-law, and he killed them both. Because they took the only granddaughter that they had who was powerful with the Force, and they weren't drunkards trading her for drinking money on Jakku. They were trying to stash her, a lot like Ben Kenobi did with with Luke Skywalker when they split up the twins in A New Hope on Tatooine. Bring this child to the place that no one else would look for her so that she could live and grow up and maybe come back and defeat Palpatine. She is Palpatine's granddaughter, which is why she had all the strength, the Mary Sue that everybody, oh my God, there were even theories back then when she first came on the scene that she might be a Palpatine's granddaughter. And a lot of people dismissed it, but a lot of fans kind of stuck with that. So whoever had come up with that in the first place, you guys were right. Let's see. So battle ensues, Ben dies. Reylo gives him, they do the whole kissing scene, and he dies and then fades off. Let's see, what else did we have in this movie? But before all that happened, Rey feels responsible, and she flies off to Octo, and she wants to pull a Luke Skywalker. She crashes or destroys the TIE fighter that was Kylo Ren's on the planet, or on the island of Octo. And she's basically, I'm done with this. I'm just going to turn myself off from the Force and hide on this island just like Luke Skywalker does. She takes the Anakin lightsaber and she goes to throw it in the fire of the wreckage of the TIE fighter, and a hand, boom, catches it, and out of the fire. And one of the best scenes in the movie is Luke Skywalker. Now, we already saw in The Last Jedi with Yoda conjuring lightning and taking his cane and knocking Luke in the head, breaking the fourth wall or whatever, that ghosts actually can interact with people. Luke catches the lightsaber and comes walking out of the fire, and he says the line that retcons what Rian Johnson did. And Luke Skywalker says, this is not how you should never throw away the weapon of a Jedi. Basically flushing down the toilet, the shot in The Last Jedi where Luke tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder. Some people are going to argue with me that it wasn't retcon, that it was just something that they decided to write it that way, that even Luke realized he shouldn't throw away the weapon. But I'm telling you, all the stuff, the Force vision, everything that was done by J.J. Abrams in The Force Awakens, and the outline that he was handed to Rian Johnson was thrown out with like the baby in the bathwater. And Rian Johnson wrote his artsy fartsy movie and subverted all expectations. But what he did was he had a muddled middle act that had to be retconned because it upset too many people, and Disney was like, no, we just lost a ton of money. No matter how you look at it, they lost a ton of money. Luke goes on this thing about fear, and that, that's the biggest challenge of a Jedi Knight is to conquer fear. And he was like, but look, you basically, Rey, look, you destroyed your only ship that you were going to use to get off the planet. And Rey's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Next thing you know, paying mad fan service. We all know Luke Skywalker's X-Wing was in the water on Octu because we had seen it before. And Luke is standing there on the cliff using the Force like Yoda, and he lifts his X-Wing out of the water with the iconic music from that scene in Empire Strikes Back when Yoda did it, sets it down, and she jumps into the X-Wing. Obviously, probably had to tune it up or whatever because it was waterlogged, and she's off flying through space. While she was flying through space, the Resistance could tell Luke's X-Wing was flying through space, and they realized it was Rey in Luke's X-Wing, and that led them to the Star Destroyers on Exagongal, whatever it's called. Let's see. Look, they played it safe. Disney played it safe. It is a soft reboot of Return of the Jedi, much like it was A New Hope for The Force Awakens. And in many respects, The Last Jedi was a lot like Empire Strikes Back, but just done with such a shitty, handled very shittily with comedy and just throwing out all the lore and everything. So, make a long story short, the rebels, there's like a primitive tribe of people. They get put on transports that land on Star Destroyers because they have to take out a tower, much like Return of the Jedi. They had to take out a thing that had a force field around Death Star 2. And once that was out, then they could attack and take down the Empire, the Last Order, the First Order, whatever. Like, it's same thing, man. All the themes over again until they won the battle. Same thing with Palpatine in the fight. He said a lot of the same similar things. You have to strike me down with your weapon and take your place on my throne instead of by my side. Emperor Palpatine wanted his granddaughter to take over the Sith temple and bring back the Sith. Same thing, but once again, instead of Anakin Skywalker helping defeat the Emperor, it was Ben Solo as a duo, them beating the Emperor. Some of the cool parts about the Emperor in this thing was, first of all, if they really wanted to go bold with it, they shouldn't have used Palpatine. They should have used Darth Plagueis the Wise, the one that could cheat death and come back, and taught Palpatine how to cheat death. Because that bringing Palpatine back did kind of kill Anakin Skywalker's arc, because he was the chosen one that threw Palpatine down the shaft, and it was Luke that helped his father come back. So technically, bringing Palpatine did kill the arc for Anakin Skywalker. So yeah, I would have gone with Darth Plagueis, but I think they went safe with Palpatine because most of the fan base knows him from the prequels and knows him from the original trilogy. So I think they just went safe with that. But again, like I said, soft reboot, Return of the Jedi. You think everything's going to be lost, and then it's all turned around, and they defeat the Last Order, which are all these Star Destroyers that have Death Star weapon tech on it. Now, I will say that just like Return of the Jedi at the end, there are multiple celebrations. Once they've defeated everything, they show Cloud City. They show is very similar to what they did with the Star Wars Special Edition on Return of the Jedi. What I can't figure out is, other than Rey, she's got this motivation to go back to Tatooine, where it all began, and she brings Luke's lightsaber and Leia's lightsaber, and she uses the Force to part sand right by Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's homestead, puts the lightsabers in there, sand covers over. There's some random person in the desert that says, "Hey, who are you?" And just like the end of Return of the Jedi, when Luke turns and looks and sees Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then Sebastian Shaw playing Anakin Skywalker appear as ghosts. She smiles. They nod. The world is great. Same thing here. She's on Tatooine. She buries the lightsabers, in essence burying the storyline of the Skywalkers, turns and looks, and there is Leia as a ghost, Luke as a ghost, kind of smiling, that same ending of Return of the Jedi. And of course, Rey turns and looks, and there's the double sun, and she's got BB-8, and she's, all alone, but she's saved everything. She did construct a new lightsaber for herself after she got rid of the others, which is a yellow lightsaber. And the only other thing I could say is Finn got some satisfaction about like where he came from. He met more people that were stolen as children, that put down weapons and did not want to kill civilians. And so he kind of found his place. There was this thing that Finn kept trying to say to Rey throughout the whole thing. There's something I got to tell you. There's something I got to tell you. And he never quite said it. And some people are going to speculate he was going to say, "I love you, Rey." I don't think so. There was a hint there that he is force sensitive. And I think what he was going to tell her is, I feel that because he had said it in the one ship with the one actress there from the tribe, he had said, "I feel things with the Force. It brought me to Rey. It brought me here. It brought me here. And now we're here." And I think he was going to try to tell her that I believe I have the Force as well, and maybe he might have reached out to her and said, "Will you train me?" The thing about it is they said that this was going to be the end of all the saga movies altogether. But Rey shows off that she's got her own new lightsaber at the end and walks off into the sunset. So with the hints that Finn says, "I might have the Force," and Rey with her yellow lightsaber, putting all the Luke Skywalker, the Skywalker saga behind them. Is there in 10 years, they bring Rey back, Daisy Ridley? They left the door open, and I think that was done on purpose, especially if this movie does really well. Well, let's go back real quick. One last thing: Chewbacca finally gets his due. Maz Kanata, who had a couple of really good scenes in the film as well, gets a medal, which he should have gotten in A New Hope. And it's the medal, I believe it was either Luke's or Han's medal that Han apparently traded to Maz Kanata, according to the novels or the books or whatever, traded his medal for a drink in a drunken stupor. And at the end of this, Maz Kanata says to Chewie, "Come down here." She gives him the medal, and I think it was probably Han's, because Chewie got all emotional, and the medal was given to him, and she said, "You deserve this medal." So lots of fan service. There was a shot with Warwick Davis as a grade furred Wicket on Endor with his spear jumping up and down. Lots of fan service throughout the whole thing. And I think that's what Disney was like, "Look, guys, we screwed up with The Last Jedi. We upset a lot of stuff. We're going to wrap this all up. We're going to do the best job that we can. We're going to give you guys what you wanted and give you the expectations that you had." Because in the end, this is a franchise that spanned 40 years. If you wanted to make an artsy-fartsy art house movie that destroyed legacy characters, go do Looper 2, or go do another Knives Out murder mystery movie. But you have to give the fans the 40 years, multiple decades, kids that grew up with the prequels, kids that grew up with the originals, people that watch the Clone Wars, now people that are seeing the Mandalorian for the first time. You have to give them what they want. You can't go against what they expect. If you want the money to roll in, I have expectations that even though it's trending at 57, 58%, Rotten Tomatoes, Rise of Skywalker, that's all the critics' things, I have a feeling that the audience score is going to be higher than the critics, because people are going to go, oh, wait. Oh, I get it. This is what we wanted in the first place. So basically, one other thing, Snoke, Palpatine says in one scene in the Jedi Temple to Ben Solo or Kylo Ren at the time, he says, I've been the voice you've been hearing in your head. And then it turns into shithead from Snoke from the last Jedi. And then when Kylo's walking through the Jedi Temple, you see some Bacta tanks with a couple of cloned Snokes that are floating in like a solution at different stages. And so you realize, and then he says, and then his voice switches over to Darth Vader, James Earl Jones, and the Emperor says, I have been all the voices in your head. And then, so you see these transitions. So basically, yes, Palpatine's force, powers went into a clone, and Snoke was a clone, and so on and so on and so on, which clones are a big deal in the Star Wars universe. And now with clone baby Yoda, I think we're going to find out in The Mandalorian, this was something that might pop off in the season finale. But hey, look, we got Han Solo back. We got our hopeful, wise Luke Skywalker back. We had a great send-off for Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. We had Lando Calrissian. We had Wedge Antilles. We had the redemption of Ben Solo. We had Reylo. Literally, JJ just checked every damn box of what everybody wanted and gave them a fantastic film. Is this the best Star Wars film ever? No. Is it a damn good sequel to The Force Awakens? Yes. It did not subvert expectations. It did a great job. My hat's off to J.J. Abrams and the mystery box, especially keeping that Han Solo cameo, Harrison Ford, under wraps. And that's it. I'm done. This will be my only video on The Rise of Skywalker. I've jumped around a lot on this video, but again, I just finished watching the film, so everything's just flying out of me. C-3PO was fantastic. R2-D2 was everything. It ended very happy. The only thing is no one really died except Ben Solo. So, you thought Chewbacca died for a minute there. You thought C-3PO was going to be gone forever. But they all came back. So everything was good. I enjoyed the film. Unlike the Blu-ray for The Last Jedi, I probably will be buying the Blu-ray for Rise of the Skywalker for my collection, and I will just continue to pretend The Last Jedi just doesn't exist. Thank you, Disney. Thank you, Bob Iger. Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy. Thank you, J.J. Abrams, for doing the best you can with the material, with what you were left with after the last movie butchered everything you had come up with. That's it. Let's talk about it in the comments section. Woo! 30 minutes later, and we'll see you on the next one.